There are so many things that I thought I knew about the body and about movement and about the role of the yoga teacher that simply have turned out to be wrong as I've understood the movement science more. And I imagine that many of us think that yoga teaching has a lot to do with alignment, and that aligning the body has a lot to do with preventing pain or preventing injury. It turns out none of those things are nearly as simple as we might think. So, for example, the way that we hold the body, our posture, does not seem to be correlated at all with the amount of pain that we might experience. There are all sorts of different types of alignment and posture that have been examined, and none of them show a correlation between pain and bad posture, whether that's the neck coming forward or slouching. If we look at the example of pelvic tilt, so come and move your pelvis if you'd like to. Say, for example, we often think that anterior pelvic tilt is problematic, and we hear that we're trying to work towards a more neutral pelvis, so something away from posterior or anterior. But actually, those who have neutral pelvic tilt have been shown to be more likely to have back pain in research. I will put the references below so that you can read more on all of these. If you want help with understanding this research and why it is and how it all ties together, and what we can do as yoga teachers to really have a role that is relevant and helps people have less pain, I go into detail on all of this in a really practical way in the movement science course. But let's keep going through some tips for now. So some of those studies that talk about pelvic tilt, for example, Chun et al. Is a 2017 study, and Murray et al. In 2003. But there are many, many different studies to show this. Another thing is that the whole thing of rounding the spine and this spinal flexion being bad for us, and we often teach in yoga to lengthen up, let's say, before we come into a forward fold. And again, interestingly, some studies have even suggested that slouching has benefits to it. So there are just so many ways in which we can relax about very specific alignment cues. But of course, we do want to be exploring different and new movements, because this can enhance our neuroplasticity, so the way that the body gets mapped in the brain. The more accurate those maps are from different movements means that, firstly, we're less prone to anxiety because the brain likes to know where its body is in space. But also we're less likely to have pain because it's shown that when there's smudgy movement maps, not so much detail, we are more prone to pain than when we have a really accurate movement map. So instead of thinking like we want to have quite rigid rules about how the posture is, we can think that we want to help to create bodies that move freely, which probably does tie in with what we originally thought as well about yogasana. It's just we don't need to worry so much about keeping things in rigid or strict alignment rules. When it comes to alignment details, let's say, for example, we often hear about the knee in warrior two pose or side angle pose or lunges, and we're told to stack the knee above the ankle and not here, let's say, when I come into side angle pose. Again, this is oversimplified. If somebody has damage to their knee, they might not be comfortable to come to here, but they might be comfortable here, or they might be here or here, etc. So there's a few different points here. One is that it's always individual. We always need to adapt for the individual, because all bodies are resilient. All the tissues of the body are adaptable. Everything strengthens when it is exposed to enough force, enough load, but the body can be damaged if that force or load is excessive for that body, for what that body is already habituated to. And so once we understand these rules of biomechanics, and once we understand that tissue damage takes usually a lot of force, then we can relax much more about the alignment rules, or instead of having blanket alignment cues, we can have a more individualized approach. One reason why this is so important is because language is so significant for our experience of pain. Pain isn't coming from the body out. It's coming from the body, from stimulus in the body. Now the thigh says something happened. That's carried through to the brain, and then the brain has to interpret all of the different signals before it outputs pain. So when I'm more stressed, if I'm more exhausted, my brain is going to be getting all of these different signals. I'm going to be more sensitized in terms of the nervous system, and I'm going to be more likely to output pain. So when we put these last 2 points together, firstly, we are going to find it quite hard to have enough speed and enough force with body weight only in our yoga practice to tear the tissues of the body, to say tear a ligament, etc. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to get pain. We can have pain when there isn't tissue damage or when there is. It could be that there's already a little tear in a ligament and that's playing up into pain in the class. The thing is, we don't always want to avoid pain. Sometimes when you go to the physio, I went recently for a shoulder thing, and they told me to do the exact thing that hurt and to hold the arm there and to bring it back down, because this was helping the brain to understand that the arm was safe there. So firstly, tissue damage is unlikely. Secondly, we may even want to move through pain. So what we often say is, if it hurts, come out. That's not always the recommended thing in terms of what the physios say. And so we would want our students to know how much they should or shouldn't be doing so we can help them to work that out. And then the other related point is how we use language is so important. And I'm really on a mission to help yoga teachers to get better at communicating about the body and the nervous system and pain. Because once we understand that the body is resilient, that it's capable of strengthening, that we don't need to be worried about every single movement, firstly, we can move more confidently. We start to move more. We start to enjoy our movement more. And secondly, it down-regulates that whole experience of pain. The brain stops worrying so much, and we're much less likely to be in pain. There are a lot of quite complex concepts here, which I would love to explain more in the movement science course, and to give you really practical tips. So you'll have a whole workshop on how to talk about language. You'll have a whole course on how to help alleviate back pain. You will have really practical skills that you can just take straight into your classes or to run specialist classes. So this is all quite nuanced. I'm not saying that alignment doesn't matter. It does matter, because we're using the body in asana to help calm the mind, to help steady the mind. We're using the body to come into stillness so that we can feel at ease. We're using the body in movement so that we can feel energized. And all of this stays the same. We just don't need to be worried about it so much. And we may want to add in some new movements, because that movement adaptability is going to help the relationship between the body and the brain, something which asana was set up for right from the beginning. I hope this has given you some food for thought. I'll put some references so you can read lots more about this below. And if you would like help understanding the research, that's another thing which we cover in the course, and I would love to help you with it. My name is Laura Gilmore. I work in Bristol, and I have online courses to support yoga teachers to stay up to date with the research, to enjoy their creativity, and to offer yoga which is so powerful, empowering for both the teacher and their students, and I'd love to share it with you.